It freaks everybody out. Kind of getting used to it.
It sounds like you're not playing a baddie for once. Is it nice to have a bit of a different tone?
Oh, look, I mean, it's interesting when you on the perspective of talking about baddies or good characters or whatever, because I don't mind playing the baddie. I mean, the baddies are very complex characters that being an actor, you got to really dig deep and find dimensions that aren't just normal. That's probably a good word to say. So it's been great to have a whole host of characters that segue between, like Deathstroke, Slade Wilson, or Crixus. He was between good and bad, and that gave me the whole roller coaster ride as an actor. Al-Anon's another roller coaster ride. I mean, when I asked people about the book originally, when I hadn't read it, some friends of mine had read it, and they said, "You're playing Al-Anon? Man, like Al-Anon's like he's like badass, but he's dark and he's ominous, but he's the guy that leads Will Oxford into this transition of a young man who becomes, like, through a Jedi process, becomes the man who's going to fight for the Four Lands, with the help of course, Eritrea and Amberley, I mean, the character has huge scope.
Isn't it?
Is he a good guy? Yes, but he's not a good guy as well. He's just he's like a character with range and flaws, and it's great to have.
As an actor,
Yes, I'll take it. I'm a good guy.
as an actor, isn't part of the fun of playing a bad guy is the fact that bad guys never think they are the bad guys?
Yeah, that's always you can't approach, and otherwise it's just it's like a moustache twisting kind of two-dimensional caricature. But yeah, no, it's. What about yours, darling?
No, my character is pretty dark. Well, I play Eritrea. She's one of the few humans in this post-apocalyptic world where most humans, basically the human race has been extinguished. And there's new races coming up like elves, druids, gnomes. And I come a little bit from the wrong side of the tracks, so that's easy. I do have quite a dark background. But I think deep inside Eritrea has a really big heart, and all she wants is a better life to better herself. And when she meets Will and Amberley, she doesn't realize, but she has the opportunity to expand her horizons and to go on this journey to sort of discover herself and do something good and give a purpose in her life. So, talking about dark characters, I think
what you're saying, like that's something that you brought up a lot, like the cast that's been pulled together for this show is really diverse. Ivana from Spain, Poppy from England, Austin from America, me from New Zealand, John Rhys Davies from the Isle of Man. I mean, it's an epic story about races, and unlike Lord of the Rings, where you had the evil and the good, there's actually kind of a disparity between all the races in this particular story that mimics more like what our world is, and yet it still hinges on the fact that the humans were responsible for a giant battle that destroyed the planet. It's just that other races, like whether you be Asian or Hispanic or African American or African or whatever, these other races have come up and taken over. So it's like looking at the ruins through a kind of a fantastical lens, but it's also a real lens. These are just different tribes, different groups now that have occupied the planet. So it's kind of like a realistic view of the world if it fucked up, can you print that if it fucked up, right? And then you ended up kind of with this mix of people that are fighting for their own rights. In this particular example, they're called elves, but they could be Scottish, there's other elements. They're all beckoning on each other to sort of like,
Elves and kilts.
But then, it seems like all of the races, they're not just elves or just gnomes or something like that. There's a lot of layers to them. So, which one are you most intrigued with? Is there any of the races where you're like, okay, this is what I think is most interesting about this world?
Well, I found that Will, being a half-breed, being half human, half elf, that's one of the most interesting dynamics in the story, because at the end of the day he's got a human that sort of loves him, and an elf that loves him.
Yeah.
And somehow his storyline becomes kind of like he's the one that's got the hope, the one who's actually bred between the races. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I mean, when you look at that under a microscope and try to pull it apart and go like, what's the metaphor? You know, it's all about peaceably understanding and coming to terms with you know what we deal with on this planet now. You know what I mean? And that's the reality that draws us into the Lord of the Rings or Shannara.
And then for you to shoot in your home country in New Zealand, was that like a privilege, or was it like staying here?
I just
like...
moved all of my gear. I bought a car. I just moved into LA. I went for my first audition in Hollywood, and it was for this. And they were like, "Oh, we like you." I said, "Where's the shooting?" I said, "In New Zealand." I had to get on a plane and fly home. They sent me home. That's what Hollywood thought. They said, "Okay, bye-bye, go home." But you know, but to be honest, like I said that this morning in the panel, it was like my strength is when I've got my feet on New Zealand soil, right? I come here, I get a little bit nervous actually because I don't quite know how to fit in. You know, I'm a halfling. You know.
And can you two talk a bit about how important Comic-Con is to this show?
It's my first time in Comic-Con, but I think it's a great place to show the trade for the first time. It's a show, it's a fantasy show, it's a genre show, and I think it's the perfect place to sort of get people to know about it. There's a lot of fans of the book, hopefully in the future of the show, so I think it's one of the best places to sort of release it publicly.
Yeah, I think that once you get on a show that's released at Comic-Con, right, then all of a sudden you're part of this world that's been created by the wonderful people who've created and the fan support that are supporting Comic-Con, which is a massive part of the American public. You know, I do these conventions every week, going to Comic-Cons around the country, and it's like being given this opportunity to get in with the people. You know, and for someone like Ivana, who's a Spanish actor, or Poppy, who's an English actress, you know, this is a great opportunity. Or Austin, who's been on a show but it wasn't premiered in an environment like this. You know, I think this allows them the platform of Comic-Con to then build their careers. I've been here 5 years in a row, so I'm starting to feel old. You know? But, you know, I know the opportunity. I know what it's allowed me to sort of open up into, you know, as an actor, you know, so you know, like it's funny, Austin said to me, you know, "Oh man, how did you do this morning? You talked to me." You know, it's like, I can't wait to see Austin here next year when Shannara's a hit and the meeting room that we'll be in hopefully be as big as Walking Dead's. You know what I mean? And then to allow them to see how that builds in this world, because this is the marketplace. And you know, even though Hollywood's got a big presence here, there's nothing bigger at Comic-Con than the people. You know what I mean? And so it's, you know, it's a really interesting place to come and stand as an actor. You know, especially with shows that are breaking ground. You know, I mean, over the last couple of years, it's all been J.J. Abrams and all these visionaries. You know, I mean, our producer of this show, Dan Farrar. Okay, he's 35 years old. He got this book property, and he said, "Terry, let's go sell it to Warner Brothers as a film." They went to Warner Brothers. It didn't hit it because it didn't take off because Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were going, and then it got totally reconfigured and bought to television. Now, Dan Farrar's a 35-year-old producer who bought this show to television, which is a big gamble, but it's a great gamble. I mean, Peter Jackson said 10 years ago he couldn't have made Lord of the Rings until the technology became available. Well, if you'd said to Peter Jackson, make it for television, there's no way in the world he thought it was even possible. So now, someone like Dan Farrar and these guys are visionary enough to say, you know what, the technology's here, we can do it for television now. And when Dan's going on to produce that new Spielberg film based upon that book, Game Player, what was it?
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One, yeah.
Oh.
Like Dan Farrar, the producer of this one, has just taken that book. He looks after that author and has taken that book to film. And Spielberg directed it. So I mean, you know, you've got to look at who the visionary is behind this show. And it's Terry Brooks as a writer, and it's Dan Farrar, our producer, who've got the balls to go, let's take the gamble. Let's go to MTV and say, let's get millions of dollars and throw it on this, right? And we can make sure it happens. You know what the smartest thing they did to make sure it happened? They took it to New Zealand because all the people there on the creative side can provide it. You know, it was a smart choice. So, you know, it's, you know, the game's opening up. Television's getting better. It's, film and television are starting to level out.
Taking over this year's kind of products.
You get richer storylines. You get broader character arcs. You get hours upon hours of enjoying the characters that you love. You know, I mean, movies are a one-night stand. Television's a relationship. You know.
All right.